The third part of TOEFL test is speaking, and this was the most difficult part for me. I don't have any problems with speaking, and I owe that to my language abroad experience, because I used to go to England to study English, then I went to Canada to study English, so I had a lot of practice with native speakers. I talked a lot. But TOEFL is just ridiculous, because they ask you to talk about some particular things that you never talk about, and then you have a very limited time. You have 15 seconds to think and 60 seconds to talk. So my life hack for speaking was to just learn some templates for every single question, because they have 6 questions and every question follows the same plan for every test. And so I'm going to give you the templates that I've used, and I'm going to tell you how these questions in speaking are structured. I also wanted to add that I was really afraid of this part. I've listened to some feedback from people who actually check the TOEFL speaking part, and they gave lower scores to people who mumbled, to people who spoke too slowly. I'm like, what? What is too slow? What is too fast? How do I know? And then even native speakers get confused. And also, it was surprising for me that I had to talk about the topics I would never ever discuss in my life. Like, why don't you like rock music? Give 2 examples. I don't know why I don't like, I just don't like it. And then you have 15 seconds to think of those greatest examples. And so this is how we move to the first question actually. They would ask you some question and you would have to give 2 examples why you don't like rock music, why you like your city, why you want to travel to the United States, blah blah blah. Sometimes these questions don't have to do anything with real life. TOEFL people advise you not to lie in these questions. But seriously, I don't know, if I never ever think about this topic, if I don't have any examples in my mind, the only thing left for me is to lie. If you want to make this sound more true to life, I would advise you to remember your friends, or just imagine your friend who went, for example, to a rock music concert, and he came back with an incredible headache and he hated it, and this is why you don't like rock music. You don't even want to make yourself listen to it. Sorry guys who love rock music, it's just an example. It's not real life. I just wanted to show you how it works in TOEFL. So don't be afraid to lie. I mean, they tell you not to lie, but it's better to say something than just to stay silent. So talk about your friends, talk about your relatives, or just think of some examples that come to your mind. And I would really advise you to use all the bridge words, as they name them. Like, in my opinion, it is great to travel to the United States because, and then you give 2 very specific examples. Like, first, because New York is the greatest city in the world and it's located in the United States. That's why I want to go to the United States and see New York. Second, United States has all the climates that you can think of. They have Florida, they have Washington, they have Alaska. That's why I want to experience a country that has it all. Sometimes if you have some time left, like if you have 5 seconds left, you can just say that's why I think so, or this summarizes my opinion, just to finalize what you just said. But also, if you forget to say that, don't be afraid, because I was so nervous during my speaking part. I forgot the majority of things I've learned. Yes, this happens, and I didn't finish many of my questions, so I just said, I named 2 examples and then it was it. I just went silent, but they didn't reduce my mark because of that. And another thing that happened to me, I had 10 seconds left, and I was like, oh my god, 10 seconds left, I have to say something. So I was like, I was started thinking, I was like, and then what? I didn't say anything, and it was just, which finalized my answer. And I was like, what did I just do? Because I thought they would reduce my mark, but I actually scored 30 out of 30, so it didn't spoil my results. First and second questions about those random topics, and the best way to prepare for them is just to ask your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend to name you some topics that you never discussed, just because you have to train your brain to come up with weird examples. The third question is easier because they actually give you the text and they give you someone's opinion on the text. and you just have to summarize what you've heard. And the template for that would be the reading states that, and you have the quick summary of the text. The speaker's opinion is that blah blah blah, and you give the first example that he provides in his speech and the second example, and that's it. The great thing is that this pattern is the same for every third question in TOEFL speaking part. The fourth question, you would get a text about something, for example, top universities in the United States, and then you would get a speaker who provides a specific example of top university, for example, Stanford. And what you have to do is summarize what you've read in the text and what you've heard. And so you say the article is about top universities in the United States, which are defined, so you have to kind of include a short definition of what is the text about. So top universities are defined by the level of income of graduates, as example. And then you go to what the speaker says, and you say the speaker provides Stanford as an example of top universities because first, Stanford graduates get the highest salary. Second, Stanford gets a lot of funding from successful entrepreneurs. This is just an example, but this is how it should look like. And again, if you have some time in the end, you just say this is why Stanford is a top university in the United States and in the world, just to conclude what you just heard and said. The fifth question is my favorite because it doesn't cover those random topics like ancient things like spaceships or whatever. It just covers real life. So normally you would have two students that are discussing some problem. For example, one student complains to another that he has a very loud neighbor and he doesn't know what to do, and the second student would come up with two solutions for his friend. He would say, for example, you could argue with your neighbor and tell him to move out because he's not following the rules of the residence, and the second solution is to just talk to the residence manager. And this is it gives you pretty much the idea of how the answers look like, and I would advise you to always choose the second answer because it is normally the best one, and it saves you a lot of time on thinking which answer is the best. So just train yourself to selecting the second answer and providing the reasons for it. And what you have to say in the fifth question is that you discuss the problem, you state the problem, you say the problem that the student has is that his neighbor is too loud. To my mind, the second solution, talking to the residence manager, is the best because first, he wouldn't have to argue with his neighbor. Second, the residence manager always comes up with better ideas on how to solve the problem, and he has to be aware of what's happening in the residence. This is why I think the second solution is the best. So by using this simple template, you will reduce a lot of thinking time, and you would have more time to concentrate on the reasons themselves because you would have all the structure in your head. And the sixth question is very scientific. So for example, you would have text about reptiles, and then you would hear professor talking about reptiles and providing examples. For example, he would talk about snakes and turtles, and what you have to do is somehow link snakes and turtles to the text and explain why the first and the second are reptiles. And so your answer should look like the article is about different kinds of reptiles which are defined as blah blah blah, and then the professor provides two specific examples of reptiles. First is turtles because they have these qualities of reptiles, and second are snakes because they also have these qualities of reptiles. And this is how you come to an end of the speaking part, and you just relax. But the key thing to remember for this part is to just memorize all the templates. I actually took a piece of paper with all the templates with me and I read it before the test. Of course, you're not allowed to read anything during the test, but just having it with me and refreshing what I've learned before the test, I think it really helped me passing the speaking part. Okay, so now we arrived at the last part of TOEFL, which is essays writing. You have two essays. The first essay doesn't give you a lot of freedom for imagination because you just get a text about some phenomena. There are some reasons to explain this phenomena. For example, the text says that the internet is bad. The first paragraph talks about that the internet has evolved during the last years, and the second paragraph talks about internet's damage for health. The third paragraph talks about internet's damage for relationship, and fourth paragraph talks about internet scams, like people laundering money or stealing money from each other. And then you would have some professional talking about the same topic, but actually refusing every single argument that is stated in the text. For example, you would hear a professor from a university who says that actually internet is great, and he would provide you examples that would be the opposite to what you've read in the text. For example, he would say that internet actually helps relationships, that recent studies have provided data that internet doesn't really hurt health, like radiation from computers doesn't really hurt health. And he would also say that internet actually allowed money to travel from one country to another and allowed businesses to thrive internationally. And your task is to summarize all of that in your essay. That means you would have to explain what the text is about and what professor opinion is, and every single paragraph will be dedicated to comparing the thoughts in the text and comparing what professor says about the facts in the text. And the structure for that will be, for every single paragraph would be like the article claims that internet damages the health. However, professor refuses the statement by providing results from recent studies that show that not using internet can actually lead to severe health problems because of blah blah blah. I don't know, guys, I'm just making this up. I just wanted to give you the idea of what the text looked like. And you would be also given the word count that they want you to have. I would advise you exceeding this word count, because the best texts, which get the best scores, actually exceed the word count by 100 or 200 words. So in the second essay, I would advise you to exceed 300 word limit. Go out there and share your thoughts with TOEFL readers. The second essay gives you freedom for your own thoughts. So you would be given some problem and you would have to explain what you think about it, providing clear examples. And every paragraph should stand for an argument. For example, if the topic is mathematics should not be taught at school, you would have 3 reasons refusing that or agreeing with that, and you would have specific examples for every single paragraph. The people who are checking your writing, they will have special guidelines, and there is some advice I wanted to give you. The first advice, just to avoid making mistakes. If you want to use some very beautiful word you think will improve your score, but you're not sure how to spell it, just don't do it. Just use simple words, and it's better to, get lower score because you're using simple vocabulary than getting a really low score because you're making mistakes in every single interesting word that you use. It's also really important to remember that you're writing an academic test, so no contractions, no colloquial phrases. If you want to say don't, you have to write do not haven't, but have not. So just remember, just think of it as if you're writing your college essay and your professor would be reading it. This is the kind of environment you're in. And every paragraph should be pretty much the same in terms of volume, because every paragraph represents a thought, and every thought has to be described in full detail. And my experience in essays, I thought I was great. I exceeded the word count, I checked everything. I thought it was the best essay I've ever written because the thoughts were so deep. I was so great, But then I scored 27 out of 30, and they don't really give you a reason why they do that. They just give you 27. But I think is that I didn't use those interesting and complicated words. I used just simple vocabulary because I wanted to make sure that I don't do any mistakes, and they actually account for that as well, and that's why I think I scored 27. But it was okay all in all, because 117 is way above everything I needed for the college. Okay guys, I hope this video is interesting. I hope that you enjoyed listening to my experience and that you've heard something very important for yourself as well. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to hear how I passed GMAT, how I got into top American universities, and about my life in the United States. Bye bye!